Welcome to Scandal Water, where the tea is hot and the conversation lively.
Your hosts, Candy
And Ashley,
will discuss a peculiar story somehow related to the entertainment industry. This podcast might not change the world, but it just might satisfy your thirst for an intriguing tale.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello, Candy.
We're back for our last episode of July.
It's gone so fast.
It has. I'm going to be sad to say goodbye to our Mission Blockbusters.
I am too.
This is such a great topic. However, we do have a really
We're going out with a bang.
We are. Tell them what it is.
Mission Impossible.
That's right. We're doing the very first Mission Impossible, which came out way back in 1996. Can you believe that?
I cannot. And we gave you a little Easter egg in our Shrek episode
We did.
with the Shrek 2 Mission Impossible theme, if you heard that. I actually had never seen these films, but prior to us deciding to do this, Brian and I earlier this year decided we were going to start watching them. So I saw it probably in January sometime, and I think we made it up to Mission Impossible 4,
Okay.
maybe. So we haven't seen the last 3 yet.
I had seen all of the films as they came out.
Okay.
But it had been so long. I did a rewatch just recently on this original movie. And then just kind of for context, I skipped all the way to Mission Impossible 6, the
Okay.
Fallout, so that I could help myself remember how it evolved.
How it
how did
evolved.
it change
Yeah.
over the years? So that helped a little bit because I will admit
What
it
was
wasn't
the-
very fresh in my mind.
What was the big stunt in Mission Impossible 6?
The helicopter.
Okay, haven't seen that. Do you know what the big stunt was in 5? I'm trying to remember if I saw 4 or 5. Which is the one where he scaled the tower in Dubai? Is that 4 or 5?
I think that's 4.
Okay, that's as far as I got.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, funny that you bring that up because I was going to ask you, when we think about the Mission Impossible franchise, what comes immediately to everyone's mind?
Well, it's the wires. I think it's the wires first, where he drops.
Okay,
That's
okay.
what I think of first. But the second thing I think of is the tower in Dubai.
Yeah. So, but basically stunts.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think, the thing that is most prevalent in everybody's mind when you think about Mission Impossible as a series. And Ashley and I were talking off mic just a second ago. We were saying that researching this was hard because all of the news recently has been about the fact that they are coming out with the next installment, Mission Impossible 7.
Part 1.
Part 1.
I hate that.
Yeah,
I hate
Dead
it. Just,
Reckoning Part
just
1.
do a big old long 3-hour movie. I don't like to wait for
So much
part 1
more
or part...
money when they do it this
know,
way.
I know, but
I know.
I hope
It's
it doesn't
frustrating.
end on a cliffhanger and then we have to wait 4 years for it to finish, and I won't care. Like the Hunger Games, you know, Hunger Games Part 1, and then by the time Hunger Games Part 2 came, I was like, I don't care anymore. Like whatever.
But you know what happens is everybody then pays the money to
see
go
what
back
happens?
and yes, you rent it on Amazon or Netflix. You rewatch part 1 right before part 2.
I guess.
See, it is such a smart
money.
money-making
That's a lot of
move.
money.
Well, as I was saying though, all the news recently has been about the fact that this new installment is coming out. But as part of that, they are saying that this stunt is supposed to be the biggest ever. Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't. Eventually, Tom Cruise is just going to be like, I'm walking on the moon. You know, it's what else can he do to top himself?
I don't know, but I'm going to say he is pretty amazing.
He is.
Yeah. I watched this little featurette that they put out where it was basically the behind the scenes and they were showing you how he does this stunt, which is, here's the basic premise. He rides a motorcycle off of this huge cliff. You see him like in the air jumping off, and then as he separates from the motorcycle and all of a sudden then he pulls a parachute and he lands, and it's in this really deep canyon type place. I mean, it is scary. You know, us with our heights thing.
Yeah, and Grand Canyon.
No, would not.
He is fearless. What people have asked him before, like, are you scared? I think they asked him, I'm casting my mind back to, I think it was an interview about his climbing the Dubai Tower. And he's like, I'm just not afraid. He's just not afraid.
That is so
What is that
interesting.
like, Tom? What is it like to not be afraid?
I know. Well, he's so driven. I suspect the man's a perfectionist for
Oh,
sure.
for sure.
For sure. But you're going to hear from him in just a second because on this same actually featurette that I just mentioned, they talk a little bit about the stunt and what it took to prepare for it. So first, let me tell you, it has been described by Paramount Pictures as being, quote, the most dangerous thing the film's ever attempted. In a June 5th Men's Health article, it called it the biggest stunt in the history of cinema.
Good heavens.
So listen to just a few seconds of this little clip.
Far and away the most dangerous thing we've ever attempted.
We've been working on this for years. We're going to shoot it in Norway, and it'll be a motorcycle jump off a cliff into a base jump. I wanted to do it since I was a little kid. It all comes down to one thing: the audience.
There's a lot going into this stunt. So Tom put together this master plan to coordinate all of these experts in each of the particular disciplines involved to make this whole thing happen.
John and I are jumping out of the helicopter, and he's going to chase me. That's what we say to each other. Don't be careful, be confident. Be confident.
A year of base training, advanced skydive training, a lot of canopy skills, a lot of tracking.
Tom Cruise, he's an amazing individual. You tell him something and he just locks it in. His sense of spatial awareness, he's the most aware person I've ever met.
Lots of practice on stability and free fall.
Tracking with John and Miles in the air, doing lots of different positioning, like they're a two-man team in the air, coming on top of each other, below each other, back tracking, front tracking. You know, we've drilled and drilled and drilled.
If you were watching it, Ashley, was it not insane to
Oh,
look
yes.
at the cliff they were jumping from?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Makes me wonder also why he hasn't been a director yet. He's already directing so many second unit things, you know, saying, I'm going to do this and then they're going to do that. Maybe it's, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting you say that because since 1996 Mission Impossible, he has been a producer on many of these films.
That's
and
true.
as
That's
producer, he basically makes the decisions and does so much of the directing. In fact, that is something, we're going to get into that in a minute, but Brian De Palma is the actual director of the 1996 movie, and he talked about how many things, how many situations where it was Tom Cruise who made the call.
Made the call.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But in this particular situation, I don't know if you caught all that. You had little blurbs from some of the people who were training Tom, and they talked about the fact that he was in training for this for something like a year to a year and a half. He logged something like 500 skydives, over 13,000 motocross jumps. Like, there was so much training involved. He's the one who basically, the gentleman mentioned it at the beginning, that he's the one who kind of mapped out how they were going to do this.
And what did he say? Don't be careful, be confident?
Mm-hmm. That was what he said.
Don't be careful?
Yeah, be confident.
Be confident.
I think his point was be prepared.
Right.
Be prepared. And they actually filmed that stunt on their very first day of filming.
I guess they reckon if it hurts him, we can't do any more.
Well, there's that. But also, they said that even though he pulled it off successfully on his very first try, Tom thought that he could make it more impressive, that he could hang on to the bike a little longer before he separates and lets the motorcycle fall, and then he goes up and ultimately pulls his parachute. So he wanted to try it again. He ends up landing that stunt 6 separate times, and then they just chose the best one to put in the movie.
I think he just wanted to do it again.
I think he's got some kind of extreme thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an adrenaline junkie.
And also, I do believe that as somebody who understands what it takes to stay on top as an action hero and a celebrity and to keep your fame, like this is kind of his thing now. And I think that he takes a lot of pride in it, and he knows that this is where he gets a lot of mileage.
Right.
That's what
Especially
I suspect.
as he's getting older.
Yeah, because that was something that came up too, is how many more movies does he have in him? When will they either replace him or whatever?
Right.
An insightful comment, I thought, about the franchise was in a Hollywood Insider article. Here's what it said. The Mission Impossible films started off as heightened espionage flicks, then gradually progressed into being blistering celebrations of full throttle action.
Yeah.
Brian De Palma, Brad Bird, J.J. Abrams, John Woo, and now Christopher McQuarrie have all tried their hand, with each lending a different take. It's the franchise that used Tom Cruise's acting chops, repurposed them for action hero stardom, and now owes its success to his bravery. bravery.
For real bravery.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice comment on the importance that these stunts and these action sequences within the series has made to the franchise. But when we think to the original movie, it had some stunts.
It did, but
have
nothing like this.
Nothing like this. We can see we're going back to the beginning. We are going back to when it really was a little bit more about the plot line and the espionage.
Right, the spy.
And the stunts were there, but they weren't as important.
The train sequence was the stunt for that one.
That was the big one, yeah. Although, it's interesting, people don't think about it as being a really big stunt, but Tom Cruise had a little something to say about a different scene in that movie. I thought this was kind of fun. So before we wrap this little part on the stunts, let me share with you this little clip. It's from a Graham Norton show, a little talk show interview. It was back in 2018. He had actually brought on the stars of Mission Impossible Fallout. They were there to promote the new movie.
Is this where he broke his leg or his ankle or something?
He did break his ankle in that movie, but they're not talking about that.
Okay.
This is actually going to be talking about a scene from the first movie. Okay.
Now, normally, ladies and gentlemen, on a show like this, we would show a clip of Mission Impossible, but you haven't finished the film yet.
Sorry.
So, it's not going to happen. So we thought we'd make it a snatch of one of our own. Now, one of the most iconic stunts that you do, Tom, is the running away from something exploding. You're very good at it.
Thank you very much.
We've got some stills. There's that running away from a van. Oh, that's the Channel Tunnel there. And this is the exploding fish tank.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Joe, I've just looked. That's a very good move.
Yes.
I like that.
Touchdown.
That's excellent.
Score.
That is very good. So, and presumably timing is key because these are real. They're real explosions.
They're real explosions.
So,
Key.
yes.
That one was particularly very crazy.
Was this the one where no one properly told you the timing?
Yeah, the guy was over there, and he said, okay, we're going to go on 3. And he started going 3, 2, 1. I said, whoa, stop. And I was waiting. You know, we have an explosion's going to go over my head. And he said, I said, you just said on 3. He said, well, I meant 3. Well, what does that mean? So we're going to go. I said, just, everyone, please. It was like 2 a.m, and they're setting it up, and there's glass and just tons of water. And he said, well, I'm going to 3, 2, 1. And I said, do I go then? Or do I go on 1? Like, when do I go? Do I go on 1? Are you going to push the button? Is it going to explode on 1?
Or is it 3, 2, 1, and then?
He kind of looked at me like, I don't know.
Around there.
No, just when you hear the explosion, just go.
Yeah, you really ought to run because it's very dangerous.
Yes, it's very dangerous.
You really ought to run.
I thought that was fun, first of all,
That
to
is
hear him
fun.
talk about it. But I think it also brings out the point that we're sitting here talking about what they're calling the most dangerous stunts in cinematic history. And think about the danger involved
Right.
with some of the ones that they consider,
Right.
you know, the
Small
lesser ones,
Yeah.
the small ones. Yeah.
Just go. I don't know.
Yeah,
just
you know,
go.
Hey, you
Just
know,
do your Tom
count
Cruise
down.
thing.
All right, so going back to the beginning. So do you remember what Mission Impossible was based on?
TV show, right?
It was.
Yes.
Have you ever seen any clips from that?
Sure have not.
Okay. Yeah, it was before your time for sure, before my time too. It started in 1966.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it American or British?
It was American.
Okay.
It was on CBS, and it actually ran from 66 to 73. Here is a nice little description of the show from a Screen Rant article I found. In fact, I'll let you read it if you don't mind.
It says, while it's not as well known today, the original Mission Impossible TV series was once a national phenomenon, with over 170 episodes running from the fall of 1966 to the spring of 1973. That's a lot of episodes in a short amount of time. On CBS, Mission Impossible won 8 Emmy Awards and 3 Golden Globes, including Best Television Series, Drama, in 1968. Starring the likes of Martin Landau, Barbara Bain, Greg Morris, and Peter Lupus, the show followed the espionage activities of the Impossible Missions Force, a top-secret government agency also referred to as the IMF, which stands for Impossible Missions Force. An anthology series, each episode began with its leader, Jim Phelps, played by Peter Graves, selecting from a crop of specifically talented spies, one of which was almost always a guest star for an outlined international mission. Yeah, I didn't watch that. I watched Get Smart.
Oh, Get Smart.
Yes.
That was such a good show. We should
Yes.
do something on that.
Yeah.
Too. A few extra details from IMDb, who also gave a summary, of course. course, they mentioned that quite often the episodes would involve unmasking criminals or rescuing hostages. And they said, quote, "One thing is vital on an impossible mission. The mission must be carried out in entire secrecy, often relying on high-tech equipment and elaborate deceptions." And I like that IMDb brought that out because I think that is a critical part of it. And that is something that we saw within the Mission Impossible movies.
There was one, I think it was the second one with Thandie Newton, where they were pulling masks off all the time. It was just mask upon mask and nobody was who they said they were. So they really leaned into the masks on that show.
And I love the mask. I do think that is such a great gimmick. Do you not like it?
It was just, at one point, I liked it, but then I was like, good grief, guys. Is anybody who they say they are?
Yeah. I mean, that adds that whole layer of suspense and uncertainty. You talk about mystery and wondering, you know, that really does it to you. Side note, by the way, this TV show, it was by Desilu Productions.
Ah, Desilu.
Cool? Yeah.
Cool.
Well, this is the inspiration, of course, for this movie franchise and this first film, because I don't think when they made the first film that they thought they were going to have a series. I think they were just trying to make a great first film.
Interesting.
Yeah. But sadly, several actors from this original TV series were very vocal in saying that they disliked the film when it came out.
Why?
Oh, yes. Well, hang on a second. I'm going to ask you to guess. Here are a few details that may help you. Supposedly, Greg Morris, who played the tech guru Barney Collier throughout that TV show, was reportedly so disgusted by something that happened in the plot that he walked out of the theater before the movie even ended.
Okay.
And Peter Graves, who played Jim Phelps for most of the run of the TV series, he actually took over the role in the second season. But he supposedly turned down the chance to do a cameo in that movie because he didn't approve of something in the storyline. So take a guess why these guys would not have liked it.
Okay, Jim Phelps, is that the character played by Jon Voight? So he would not have liked it because he was the bad guy.
100%.
And then so the guy who was the techie, was he Emilio Estevez's character?
No, but it's the same thing. He did not approve of the twist where they took
killed.
the most beloved character. Like this was, Jim Phelps was their leader. He was like one of the team members who was so beloved and honorable and heroic and good.
And made him evil.
And they made him a double agent.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that. And when I was watching Mission Impossible, I didn't know who was the bad guy, but I figured out that he was the bad guy in that first scene.
And I have a note to ask you because you told me you figured it out.
Yeah.
How did you figure it out so quickly?
Deduction, just deducing. And again, it's been since January since I saw it. I should have rewatched it, but I do believe that it was just giving us the clues where he was looking at something. It was from his point of view. And then Emilio, when he gets smushed in the elevator, right? He gets smushed. There was just things that were going on. And the fact that he had a very young and very beautiful wife, I thought this is going to be a love interest for Tom. There's going to be some kind of triangle here. He's going to be jealous. And when Kristen Scott Thomas's character got stabbed, there was just something going on. And it was confirmed when Jim says, "Oh, I can't see something." And we just saw it from his point of view. I thought, he's lying. He's lying. Yeah. But I had an inkling that he was the bad guy in that very first thing because he was all by himself in that room and it just didn't make sense. There was things that felt off.
Yeah. Which it's funny because I think people like us who were watching that movie without a background in the original TV series.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't pick up on it, but you did. But my point is, I think if you were coming into it kind of cold, anything can go, right? I mean, anything's fair game.
Right.
But I can see where people who felt that the TV series was beloved,
that would be upsetting.
Yeah, who knew the characters, that would not be something that they would expect because Jim Phelps was established, I think, for them.
Yeah, I can understand that then.
Interesting. Although they obviously made a huge turn with their character choices from the original TV series, they did keep several elements such as the song, the self-destructing message, some of their directives like your mission, Jim, should you choose to accept it, and the other directive, as always, should you or any member of
we will disavow.
Yes, if you should be caught or killed, the secretary will disavow all knowledge of your actions. So some of the elements were there, which of course people did appreciate, the nostalgia factor.
I wonder what would have happened if you had just been like, "No thanks. Should you choose to accept it?" Okay, no thanks.
I wondered that too. Like,
well,
are you off the team?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, fine. You can decide not to do this, but you're gone.
You're gone.
Yeah, too bad. Well, here's how Tom Cruise reportedly became involved. This was from a 2023 movie Web article by Stephanie Wattell. And she actually was pulling from an interview that he gave on the event of the movie's 25th anniversary. First, her opinion was, she said, quote, "The film has no greater tension than its most famous scene, the CIA vault break-in.
Yeah.
Ethan infiltrates a vault Rafifi style." I looked up Rafifi. Do you know what that is?
I assume dangling from wires?
No.
What?
Rafifi was a mid-1950s heist movie that was supposed to have been groundbreaking for its technicality and also because it had this really, really long safe cracking sequence with absolutely no dialogue or music, which was really, really suspenseful. So they were talking about imitating what they did in that scene.
Interesting. Yes. There is no music. It is all just breathing and like freak out.
And it's so suspenseful. But to finish her quote, she said, Ethan infiltrates a vault Rafifi style by slowly dropping down on a cable in complete silence. The vault itself is equipped to trip an alarm at any change in temperature, pressure on the floors, or sound above a whisper. Essentially, it's a mission that's virtually impossible for any human to pull off except Ethan. So the fun thing is, Brian De Palma convinced Tom Cruise to do this film.
He knew that guy. He said, "Hey, guy who loves stunts, how about this?"
Here's a quote from Tom Cruise. Again, this came from Stephanie Wattell's article. "And then we came up with the idea of us having to go into the CIA. De Palma came up with that idea like Rafifi. And I remember when he came to me with that idea, I was actually in Japan, and it was an early day of phones. And I remember I was stuck in a traffic jam on my way to a premiere. I'll never forget this. De Palma was like, 'I got to talk to you.' And he pitched me the whole CIA scene on the phone when I'm in the back of a car in Japan." And I just went, okay, this movie's really cool. This guy is brilliant, you know? This was a phenomenal idea. So,
And that decision has influenced how many years of his life?
And how much money and how many. It's funny when you think about the commitment. Like, it's not just committing to movies. How much time and effort has he committed to all the training to do these stunts? And the preparation for this. Well, anyway, the article goes on to say that at the time that Tom Cruise had that conversation with Brian De Palma, the movie plotline and the characters weren't even fully fleshed out yet. But, of course, it was enough to convince him to sign on. And, as you said, this is what led to everything else. One other comment about that scene was they consider it to be groundbreaking. They say it's on par with the Matrix rooftop bullet sequence. Yeah. And they brought up how many times you see it parodied or, kind of copied in movies and TV shows.
In pop culture. You sure do.
Yeah. So let's talk about that scene for just a moment. I mean, were you impressed by it?
I was.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with I was impressed by the whole thing. The stamina, the strength.
Yes.
The ability. He's just, he knows what he's doing. He's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something in one of those featurettes. I don't know if it was the director or somebody else who commented on the incredible muscle control it took from Tom to do that. And also when they kept lowering him so fast, he was off kilter. And several times his head would bump the floor. Oh, yeah. And he's the one who came up with the idea to put coins in his shoes to counterbalance himself so that he could get his balance when he went down there.
I wouldn't even have thought of that.
I know,
balance.
Right?
Wow.
But yeah, such intentionality. Why don't we take a break before we go on?
Okay. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to go to YouTube or your favorite podcast app, such as Apple Podcast or Google Podcast.
Then search Scandal Water Podcast. And when you see the icon with your tea-drinking besties appear, hit the subscribe or follow button.
No stunts, masks, or secret identities required. Just a satisfactory
mission accomplished. All right, we are back. So as we've said, Mission Impossible came out in 1996, and in a one-sentence summary, in the franchise's first installment, Ethan Hunt must go on the run after a disastrous operation reveals the presence of a mole in his organization. And of course, they think it's him.
They always think it's him.
Right, yeah. Kittredge in particular is the bad guy, I think, in this, who kind of comes after him. Well, the other bad guy, besides the one who's really done it, right. So Paramount Pictures was the company who put it out, and it was produced by Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner, directed by, as we've now said multiple times, Brian De Palma. Now, a big deal was made about the fact that Brian De Palma directed this first movie because it's very different. Every single director had a different style, and that was something Tom Cruise was very adamant about as a producer. He was like, I want every director to take their own approach and their own style.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come off as the same thing every time?
Like even this last gentleman, I think his name is Christopher McQuarrie, I'm calling that off the top of my head. He has directed before and they said, okay, we'll change your style. Like he said, I'd like to change my style. Okay. They are very open to different approaches, different directing styles. But everybody, I think, agrees that Brian De Palma's may have been the most unique.
Really?
Because after him, it turned into kind of action hero.
True.
And
That's true.
He was the one who came at it more from the espionage film. At least, I think we all agree, towards the end of the movie, it goes into action hero once we hit kind of that train sequence. But a lot of the beginning part is different. So I was going to ask you, you probably from memory, or maybe you have some notes, do you remember anything about Brian De Palma's directing style in this movie that struck you?
I had originally thought it was the same person that did Silence of the Lambs because there was a lot of close-ups and there was a lot of face acting. So it's not the same person that did Silence of the Lambs. So that's kind of what I noticed. Is there, and again, from memory, from January, I think, there was not a lot of wide shots. Was there a lot of close-ups on the faces?
There were a lot of perspective angles, like either
POV.
Yeah, where you would take the perspective of the actor, or it would be a close-up. The camera angles were huge. Perspective was huge.
Okay.
That was actually something because I did rewatch it just recently.
Yeah.
So that was one of my notes.
Okay.
A couple of other things that I noted, I literally wrote down stylized. It was a little noirish. Like, for example, you brought up the chemistry between Claire, the character Claire, wife to Jim Phelps,
Right.
and Ethan Hunt.
Right.
From the very beginning, in that opening scene, you have within their agent roles, they are playing this little scene where she is supposed to have been, I think, a prostitute,
Yeah.
and you think she's dead.
Right.
And Tom Cruise is trying to get this other person to give him important information. And then ultimately, once he gives up the information, they quickly give her a shot or something to try to revive her. And
Yeah.
they take that guy out.
Right.
But even in that, their initial interaction with each other, the way he's trying to revive her.
You think they're a couple.
Like every scene, if you go back and look at it, every time Tom Cruise and the actress, I think her first name is Emanuela, maybe, every time the two of them are in a scene together, it is almost noir. Like you feel like they have them very close with their talking, the angles, the colors. It's very interesting.
And no wonder John Voight was super jealous. Like, look at him. Yeah.
For sure. And the other thing I will say, I don't know if this was his choice or if this was just part of the script itself, but that was the most amazing, not the little opening clip right before the Mission Impossible song, but the first big scene, their first mission.
That
like,
went bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the best openings to a suspense movie
Yes.
that I've seen. I mean, I thought it was beautiful.
I don't think I have been that stressed. Well, I was very stressed watching it, and it reminded me of being stressed watching The Dark Knight, the opening scene of The Dark Knight with the Joker and the heist at the bank. That music, I was so stressed out watching that because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
What's going to happen next?
Right, you're just on the edge of your
Yep.
seat. Part of it for me was remembering that this was 1996. And the idea that you had famous people, you do that.
was
As an
these-
audience member, you're like, oh, these are famous, well-known actors. They're going to be important to this whole film. They
Nope.
weren't afraid to kill them all.
Psycho.
Like, they
Like
took them
Psycho
all
way.
out,
Yep,
and
Janet
it
Leigh
shocks
style.
you.
Yep.
Yes. So the fact that it takes all your expectations away. You have
Right.
no idea what's going to happen. Everything's up for grabs.
Did they kill the entire team?
Except for Claire.
Right. That also tells you something.
Claire survived, but then she had a reason to survive because she explains that he saw her in the car with the other operative. I believe her name was Hannah, and she says she had gotten out to go check on something.
That's another clue. I thought, yeah, okay, you survive and you happen to be the husband and the wife survive. That's a little, yeah.
Yeah, I suspected her, which I'm sure I was supposed to.
Yeah.
But amazing opening. Like, to be honest, the first part of the movie I felt was stronger than the latter part of it.
So you
but
preferred the espionage to the action, maybe?
I think I did. And I also think just in terms of it hanging together, like the tightness of the plot. I felt like the opening was a little tighter. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the whole film. I really liked it, but I did think it was a little stronger in the beginning. Well, that same article that I've now referenced a few times had another comment about this. I thought this was insightful too, so I'll read her quote. Unlike later installments in the franchise that employ every manner of ultra-sophisticated technology and jaw-dropping stunts from the world's highest peaks, the first film is practically the opposite. With many of De Palma's trademarks, such as the quieter, more dramatic, noir-esque vibe and abundance of Dutch angle shots, the gradual cat and mouse ploy against Ethan and his team plays out with consistent tension.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would.
Henry Cherney, who plays Eugene Kittredge, said on one of those behind the scenes little interviews that Brian De Palma has superb expertise at creating tension. And a different article commented that he fills his films with beautiful, classic looking cross dissolves and sumptuous color, and talks about how he felt the same way we did, this person, that the first sequence is breathtaking when it takes its time to build suspense.
Right.
Yeah. The cast. We've already said Henry Cherney plays Eugene Kittredge. An additional note about him is that while he is super important in movie number 1, he kind of disappears from the rest of the series, but he's coming back.
He is. See, I don't
yes,
even... Who was he in the first one?
He was the head of the IMF.
Okay.
And the one who basically was after Tom Cruise's character, Ethan Hunt. He's the one who accused him of being the mole.
Okay.
Yeah. John Voight starred as Jim Phelps. We've already said that.
He's not coming back.
Yeah. The French actress Emmanuelle Berthe was the one who played Claire.
Also not coming back.
Right. Kristen Scott Thomas, you've already said, she played Agent Sarah Davies. A Lithuanian actress, Ingeborga Daknutet, played the agent Hannah Williams. And Emilio Estevez played an uncredited role as Jack Harmon. There's a little story here. So Emilio Estevez gave some interviews recently because, of all this press around the upcoming, sequel. So he says that in terms of getting involved with the first one, here's his quote. The way Tom had explained it, he said, "Look, I'd love for you to come and join the cast. The whole opening number where everybody gets wiped out. It's going to be a lot of well-known people and all of them are going to go uncredited and it's really going to set up the level of peril for Ethan." And I said, I'm in. You don't have to ask me twice. I'm in. And then afterwards, obviously, the movie's a giant hit.
Right.
So Emilio goes on to say that Tom told him that he was so sorry that he killed him off because he really wished he would have been able to bring him back in the next one and probably, who knows how many more he would have appeared in. But he told him he was really sorry he'd killed off his character. And it was funny because Emilio shared his thinking, which was, I thought you could have, in terms of bringing him back, he meant, because with all the masks, right?
right.
And why
twin
not?
Brother.
Why
I got a twin brother.
Peel off the face. Jack Harmon didn't really die. Yeah. So after the team is killed out, obviously we have a few other cast members who are brought in. Ving Rhames plays the
I liked him.
I know. Luther Stickle. He is the only actor other than Tom Cruise who has appeared in all the Mission Impossible movies.
And I had to, when we were watching them, I had to look ahead and say, is Ving Rhames in the cast? Is he in the next one? So I would know he did survive.
Oh, you got attached to him.
I did.
Yeah. He apparently only did a very small cameo for the 2011 Ghost Protocol, but they made sure he was at least in there.
Good.
Yeah. And then Jean Reno played the former IMF agent Franz Krieger.
I also like him.
Yeah, I do too. He's a good actor.
He's very good in the movie French Kiss with Meg Ryan and Kevin Kline.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, goodness. We have to have a movie day
We
where
do.
where you see all these like Sabrina and French Kiss and all those lovely films.
It sounds like maybe we should do that like in January and then
a romance theme.
And then tie it into our February Valentine's. So locations. The film was actually shot primarily in Prague and with some of it happening in London, but Brian De Palma commented in an interview how lucky they were to get to film in Prague. And he pointed out, remember, this is 1996. He said they were one of the first big Hollywood movies that was actually set and filmed in contemporary Prague. And he talked about the fact that, with having to create a setting, it's so much work, but how fortunate you are when you basically
can go on
have
location.
it. Yeah. When it's right there, it's already created for you. Like what a gift that is.
It is.
Writing was a challenge. IMDb credits the story creators as David Koepp and Steven Zalian, and the screenplay writers as David Koepp and Robert Towne. There was a lot of writing and rewriting, and sometimes they didn't like what this guy was doing, so they'd have somebody else writing over here, and it was kind of crazy, but it was kind of fun. I found this little clip from the screenwriter Robert Towne where he comments briefly about revising the script, so I'm going to let you hear. This is like 1 minute from him.
When Brian came up with the story with us, and then we sat down with David Koepp, and then David Koepp went off to direct a movie, and then Bob Towne came in.
Fortunately, for me at least, and I guess ultimately for the film, what happened was that the first thing that they shot was the blue screen stuff on the train and everything else. And as that was going on, Tom and I, we would go over the scenes that were to be shot, and I would rewrite them in the middle of the night, and sometimes even between takes.
Oh my gosh.
See, there's no modem access to the mainframe, which means I'd have to be physically at the terminal.
Relax, Luther. It's much worse than you think.
Robert has an extraordinary ability to see the layers of something, the complexity of something. He can always come up with that one line of dialogue that makes you wonder what is really going on.
You can understand you're very upset. Kittredge, you've never seen me.
Oh, that's Kittredge. Okay. But see how they're tilted in the close-ups? That reminded me of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that.
I can see that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I love that line. Kittredge, you've never seen me upset. He had a great look on his face, too. But how interesting. I thought of Jaws a little bit.
Yes.
All of the rewriting the night before, sometimes
in
between
takes.
takes, the stress level. Talk about ulcers. I don't think
Yes, look, I'm already holding my stomach in solidarity with them.
Yeah,
Goodness.
could not do that job. Special effects. I mean, obviously they were all over the place, but I just kind of pulled out, we've already identified it as what we felt was the biggest stunt sequence. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of trivia about the train and that helicopter action sequence that happens towards the end of the film.
Okay.
It was really, really complicated. And honestly, I can't say it any better than this guy, John Knoll, who was the visual effects supervisor. He was another member of the team who, obviously put this movie together. He and Tom Cruise speak briefly about that sequence. So I'm just going to let you listen to them.
The main sequence that we're working on is the train and helicopter in the Channel Tunnel sequence. It consists of 152 shots for a total running time of 7 minutes and 20 seconds.
Behind us, we have storyboards of the whole sequence to help us understand what we're doing. These evolved from simple animatics to help the director visualize the action to more sophisticated storyboards that were done once we started getting more of the details in place. It helps us to maintain our continuity and to make sure that the story is progressing as it needs to. This train is traveling at speeds upwards of 200 miles per hour with Tom Cruise on top of the train.
When we're on the train, you really had to hang on to the train. And I think it added a wonderful reality to the film.
People have seen helicopters before and they've seen tunnels before, but what we're giving Brian the ability to do here is to tell the story the way he wants to. We're giving him the ability to create an action that has never been possible.
Watching that, one thing that I really admire about Tom is he is not afraid to let himself look like he's in the elements. Mm-hmm. He's not afraid to look like he's being hit by 200-mile-an-hour winds. How it misshapes your face. Mm-hmm. And even in the Maverick movie, the stuff that it naturally does to your face, that's one of the reasons why he wants to do these stunts, is he wants it to look authentic.
Yes. I mean, it's not fun if it's not believable.
Right?
I mean, you have to be in it with him. So that sequence, which you heard them say was, I think, 7.5 minutes long, mm-hmm. It took an actual train. They did some of it with Tom kind of hanging on the train so that they could get those shots. They had to use some sets. They had to use some miniatures. They had to use blue screen. And they had to use CGI provided by Industrial Light and Magic. Yes. This is what it takes to make a 7-minute film. It is crazy. And that same gentleman, John Knoll, the supervisor of the visual effects, he shared a little bit more. He talked about the fact that you're always trying to find the balance between making stunts very impressive while also making them believable, as we've said. Mm-hmm. And so here's a cute little story. He said that at one point he had to speak up to the director, Brian De Palma, to say, hey, I don't really think Ethan Hunt Hunt should be shown hanging horizontally off the side of the train because gravity would not allow for that. And here's his quote that explains the response he got from De Palma. I was trying to explain, well, I think he should be at a bit of an angle because if you think about the vector math here, the gravity's pulling him this way and then the air drag is pushing him this way. You wouldn't get completely horizontal. And Brian didn't have a lot of patience for that kind of stuff. He said, we're making a movie. This is not a physics lesson. Get a life.
You know, that reminds me of when Steven Spielberg is like, who cares that the T-Rex couldn't have climbed up that cliff? It's a movie.
Right.
They'll forgive it.
They will. The audience is with you.
But then they'll go to this little nuanced itty bitty stuff, and then other stuff they're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It's kind of like their vision. What do they want? What do they think will get the most impact? And they're going to go for it. Well, in terms of how the movie was received, the reviews were actually a little mixed.
Really?
I mean, now the reviews, it was wildly popular in terms of money.
It must have been really popular or we wouldn't have 7 more.
Exactly. But the reviews were a little mixed. Remember, we talked about the original TV actors. Martin Landau was one of those. He was the guy who had played Roland Hand in the original TV series. And he said of this film, quote, it was basically an action-adventure movie and not mission. Mission was a mind game. The ideal mission was getting in and getting out without anyone ever knowing we were there. So the whole texture changed.
Yeah.
So his issue was it was not the essence of the original series. But that's kind of a different issue, I think. Rolling Stone magazine said this. When this action hit first came out, fans of the original series were upset that the film underplayed the whole cooperation between teammates with different skills thing.
Yeah.
Focusing instead on the heroics of the lone Cruise character. Fair enough, but what a movie. Brian De Palma delivers an atmospheric Cold War thriller that turns into a North by Northwest style adventure before transforming into a go-for-broke action spectacle. Meanwhile, Cruise becomes a bona fide action hero here. Previously, most of his action movies had simply asked him to control large, powerful vehicles. Watch the justly celebrated wordless Pentagon break-in sequence. What makes it work so well is the subtle slapstick Cruise brings to being suspended in air.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little review to talk about.
That really is.
Yeah.
To acknowledge it, to say fair enough, but this is an amazing movie.
Yeah. So it was popular with audiences. It was produced on a budget of only $80 million, but it grossed $457.7 million worldwide. It obviously paved the way for all those sequels that we've talked about. And it didn't win awards. It was not an award-winning film. However, an interesting note is that they asked U2's bassist Adam Clayton and their drummer Larry Mullen Jr. to create a remix of the Mission Impossible theme song, and they did, and it reached in the top 10 on the charts.
It's cool. It's very catchy.
Yeah.
Armchair Psychologist.
So for our armchair, Ashley, I thought I would just kind of open the floor if you have any other thoughts about, the franchise in general, or I did think it was an interesting point, the fact that they said it moved from basically something that was supposed to be kind of a spy espionage film to now the series is really just this big action adventure type thing with Tom Cruise as the clear hero. Either of those topics, whatever you would like to jump in on.
Well, let's think about it. So it started off as espionage. Well, it started off as a television show that seems like neither one of us have seen it, but from what we're inferring, it was a group effort. So they've taken this group effort, get in, get out, don't be noticed, and they kind of started that way, but they morphed it or turned it on its head into something where, okay, that whole team got killed. So now we are clearly making it, this is just about Ethan Hunt or Tom Cruise. And he got to be an action hero. And then I think with the wires and then with the train and helicopter, when they started to do another one, it naturally evolved into, well, how can we top this?
Right. Always.
Yeah. And again, the second one the one where he had longer hair? Okay. I can't remember. I'm not going to get the order correct, but there was the second one of the next ones. They focused on the mask and then he did have teammates. And then eventually he gets joined by Simon Pegg.
Yes.
And it sort of goes back into now we're a team and we're all working together. So I believe the first couple kind of put him by himself and now they're kind of morphing back into, I don't know, I haven't seen the last 3 films, but it seemed like they were leaning more into, look, he does have teammates. I'm just thinking it may have naturally gone into how can we top? You've got the one stunt per film. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then it kind of became more of the focus.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, honestly, I see their point because even in those later films, again, remember it's been a long time for me, but I did rewatch Fallout. And in Fallout, his teammates are not equals. I wouldn't say it's like
He's a leader.
They're kind of his sidekicks or his buddies who support him, I would say. Like they definitely have their strengths, but he's still the star. It's kind of clear, right? It's not in theater, you would call it ensemble. I don't think it's an ensemble type piece.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that Tom Cruise has done an excellent job of being the action hero and doing those stunts, and he's taken it very seriously, and I think he's worn his mantle well. You know, he's been a great leader. But did I enjoy even though he was still the lead, did I enjoy the espionage cat and mouse part of the first movie? I absolutely did. I really liked that team going out and seeing this one is now coming up to do this part of it. And you know, it was fun. It really was fun.
It kind of reminded me of a heist movie.
Yes.
I really like heist movies.
Yes.
I think they're fun.
I like the intelligence of them. Yeah. And even after he lost his team, I felt that, I don't know why I associate it with spy movies, but I do. That idea, I think part of it's the perspective, right? Like instead of most movies where you just sit back as an audience member and you just watch it, because this kept taking us into perspective, we would literally see Tom Cruise putting the clues together, and you, if you had not already gone there yourself, with him, you're going, yes, that's how he did it, or this is how I know this. And like you were brought into the clues and figuring things out. Also, things like when Tom Cruise goes back to his room after his team has been destroyed and he realizes Kittredge is now after him, he breaks the glass, he puts it outside his door.
Yeah, and you're smarts.
Yeah, yes, you sit there and you go, why is he doing that? Oh. Yeah. And just the intelligence, all the different moves that you felt that you were part of. Like you were being trusted as an audience member to think along with them.
Along with him. Do we know if this last installment is the last installment, or are they going to keep making these indefinitely?
I do not know. I did not dig into that. I will tell you, I saw like a few articles that speculated, well, you know, Tom is 60 now. How many more of these is he going to do? But it did not say definitively this is the end, or at least I didn't see that.
Because I'm wondering if a way they could continue to do them is at some point you get so spectacular with the stunts, you cannot top it. I made the joke, like, I'm going to be on the moon. You can't do anything else. So I wonder if a way to keep doing it is once he decides that he has aged out of doing stunts safely, if you strip it all away and go back to your roots of being the psychological thriller, and what if he's the leader of he's the Jim Phelps character and he's the one leading the team, but it's his intelligence that gets them through. And that can be the cat and mouse stuff.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Be interesting, but it would be a big hit to his ego, because I bet he really wants to be the one doing these stunts. So I would almost think he'd say, well, no stunts. Nobody can do any stunts. If I can't do it, nobody can do
it.
It's
just
over. Or, like I said, strip the stunt and we're not doing them anymore. We're just going to make it psychological this time.
But on the other hand, I think I'm always conscious of this. I think we have to be careful about ageism. Like, who says he's too old to do stunts when he hits some certain number?
Ford. Harrison Ford's 80.
Yeah, I think he seems very fit, and he may be ready to continue doing this for the next 20 years.
Right. That's why I said it has to be Tom that decides. Because he seems to, as crazy as he is as far as this crazy stunt work, it seems like he also understands his own limitations, which he thinks he has none. But he may eventually be like, oh, you know what? I now feel like I cannot do this safely. So when he decides.
You know, I'm piggybacking on that just a tiny bit. This is just a little, I don't know, trivia piece, but when we were watching Fallout and Tom Cruise was doing those huge leaps from one building to the other, we were kind of like, in every action movie you have to suspend disbelief, right? We was like, oh, this is so crazy, because if you didn't look down ahead of time, how would you know how big the gap is? But you know, you're caught up in it, you're enjoying it, it's wonderful. But we were kind of commenting on that, and Kirk said something like, one miscalculated leap and you're done. And about that time in the movie was where Tom Cruise hits and, you know, and has to kind of scramble up and everything. And I found out afterwards he did break his ankle. I don't know where it happened, but it was in that sequence where he was jumping. Well, in the same article, it said they thought he was going to be out for so long because of this broken ankle. And then when he came back, you know, they were going to have to rework some things because he wouldn't be able to do some of the stunts or some of the, you know, physical things that were set up for him. And they said, yeah, he had to take a break and heal. But when he came back, it was much sooner than expected. And he went straight back into doing his sprints and his stunts. So the man is determined.
Yeah.
He is physically fit. it.
Yeah.
And I think he's serious about when he makes a commitment or sets a goal, he's going to do it.
He's going to do it.
Well, then it seems like we definitely want to include Tom Cruise in our cheers and our shout out. And of course, all the other people that were associated with that first 1996 Mission Impossible, from Brian De Palma to the other actors who were part of that cast.
Yeah.
To the CGI people. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody, the stunt people who prepared them. Just big cheers to everyone part of Mission Impossible 1.
Cheers to you.
Cheers. If you love what we do, please rate and review our show. Or you can become a supporter by making a donation through buymeacoffee.com/scandalwaterpod. Whether a single gift or a recurring monthly donation, it would go a long way towards supporting our work and allowing us to keep the tea brewing.
At our website, www.scandalwaterpodcast.com, you can submit questions or your own story ideas, access our sources and show notes, see the merch we offer for sale, and more. You can join the Scandal Water community through our Scandal Water Podcast Facebook page, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Scandal Water Podcast.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown,
that's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.